Welcome to Beyond Wealth, Success Unscripted with Matt Calnan. Discover the personal drive, professional journeys, and business strategies that have made a real impact. It's success from the inside out.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today we're chatting with Mark Krysinski. Mark is a dedicated public servant with nearly 25 years of experience, currently serving as the Director of Community Growth in Cochrane, Alberta. His career spans various leadership roles, and he has been pivotal in developing municipal services. Mark holds a Bachelor of Management in Accounting, a Diploma in Urban Land Economics, and an MBA in Strategic Planning. He's passionate about municipal government services and also has a rich history of community and political involvement. So welcome to the show, Mark. And do you want to start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show, Matt. As you kind of mentioned there, I've got a born and raised Calgarian with fairly deep history and experience working for municipal government. I started off my career with the city of Calgary. I think that was one of my first jobs, actually teaching skating and instructing hockey. Showed up at Southland Leisure Centre with my skates looking for a job, and fortunately, my parents were willing to sign off on me starting to do training before I was 14 years old, but kind of got a head start there, which was nice. From there, I kind of had the privilege of working in almost every role, I think, with the city of Calgary, going from Parks and Recreation to eventually, when I finished high school, working in the assessment department. Spent a little bit of time there, and then transitioned from assessment to corporate properties and buildings, now real estate and development services, where I had the pleasure of essentially working in almost every role there, whether it was a leasing agent, a land agent buying and selling land, working on special projects, and as a project manager. From there, I kind of moved on to a slightly different pursuit in corporate analytics and innovation, and had again, another great opportunity to help them develop an innovation management platform. Essentially, when it was given to me, I think it was given under the idea of, can you give me a GoFundMe, but for ideas? And obviously to try and help improve the quality and efficiency of our municipal services. And that really was kind of trying to find a way to collect as many ideas as possible so that we could prioritize them, evaluate them, and try and enact as many as possible, and kind of really get that grassroots input bubbling up. Spent some time there and was seconded to the city auditor's office, where I was working as an auditor. It was a great opportunity to get exposure to the areas of the city that I hadn't really seen before, kind of in finance and IT. I really tried to focus my time there on audits and areas I hadn't experienced. After that, I returned back to a leadership role in the organization, working for real estate and development services, essentially developing, implementing, managing, and sustaining the tools, governance, and processes that are required to manage the inventory of about 8,000 parcels of land, valued at billions of dollars. So that was really exciting, and helped them develop and implement a program to critically evaluate their real estate portfolio to identify underutilized city-owned land available for sale or alternate municipal use. Really enjoyed working with that team. That kind of developed into a portfolio, including a program where we looked at how would you value or evaluate in a data-driven and evidence-based manner value statements, things like what's more important, healthcare, low taxes, or education, if you could only pick two. In a municipal context, obviously, one parcel of land can't be a park, affordable housing, and also sold to generate revenue for the city and help reduce taxes. Although, in an ideal world, I think with the teams that I led, I've always kind of tried to not take the win-win-win, do everything off the table where we can. So there's always a North Star. That was a lot of fun, very exciting role. Had the privilege of leading it, some great professionals with a deep background in municipal government, and most recently transitioned over to Director of Community Growth in Cochrane, Alberta's fastest growing municipality, which is really exciting. I think it's in a lot of ways, I see a lot of that same Western heritage spirit out in Cochrane, that same innovative, entrepreneurial, maybe in some ways kind of a pioneer drive to the community. So a really exciting opportunity to really kind of bring my knowledge and experience with North America's most livable city, I think fourth in the world again this year, to a new community and a new challenge at a different size, scale, and stage in their development. So really exciting opportunity there. We're working on a really really exciting project right now as well, called Envision Cochrane 2050, where we're setting that 25 to 50-year vision for what the community wants to be in 2050 and beyond. And that will kind of form the more boring title of a municipal development plan that guides all of our other strategies and how we make those decisions about where the road's going to go, how big and how large, and what type of things we want in parks, where those are going to be located, what economic development will look like for the community over the next 25 to 50 years. And that's kind of my portfolio here now. Is community growth can sound a little bit nebulous, but we really do involve ourselves in all things growth oriented in Cochrane, and that includes at this point safety codes, planning services, and economic development. So really anything that's going to get built, planned, and kind of how we want to help provide employment opportunities and economic development for the community.
Awesome. What was the big lead into, or the push into the career public servant? What drove that for you?
Yeah, I think as an individual, there were a few things. I think, of course, like all kind of young kids, Canada particularly, I think my original dream was to grow up and play in the NHL. But I had a fairly serious back injury when I was younger, and kind of broke one of my vertebrae, so my spine was slipping. So had bone shaved off my hip, and then my vertebrae fused together, and that, it sounds kind of, I don't know, introspective at the time when I think about it, but I do remember thinking about it of like, well, I mean, sports is kind of off the table, and, what do I want to do with my life and my career, and giving back and finding a way to help build and grow my community has always been a deep passion of mine. So I come from a family of my dad was a civil servant for the second half of his career. I think he spent the first one playing in bands and touring around BC, and was a pilot for a bit and a cab driver and everything. Drove trucks, but the civil servant part, I could see the benefit and the satisfaction of being able to give back to your community and see how your work directly contributes to help make everybody's life better every day. So I've always been driven by that. I think I've had lots of jobs over the course of my career. I think I've had 20 plus other jobs, things growing up, whether it's, bartending, serving in restaurants, working at shoe stores, those types of things. But I really felt I got a lot of that personal satisfaction out of working in municipal government. And, it was one of those things where I was fortunate enough to be able to work full time and pursue a lot of my academic opportunities and learning evenings and weekends, attending school at University of Lethbridge in the evenings. And it was a fantastic opportunity to augment my career, but always been a little bit more driven by the ability to give back to the community and help build our society and build our communities than purely financial gain.
Yeah. And just on the educational front there, you obviously have a diverse education as well, right? You got kind of the three pillars there. The Bachelor of Management and Accounting, and you said that was from the U of L. Was that the first education you got?
Yeah, I started with I kind of bounced around a little bit. I started off going to U of C, and then I got a permanent position at the city, so kind of transitioned my academic career into trying to do evenings and weekends. And fortunately, U of L had a satellite campus in Calgary at the time, so I was able to pursue my BCom in Bachelor of Management and in accounting while still working. And while I was working, as I mentioned earlier, corporate properties, buildings, and real estate and development services, all valuations and negotiations kind of start with that real estate valuation. So the diploma in urban land economics was really, that's the foundation for pursuing an appraisal designation if you're going to become an appraiser. So that was really just deepening my knowledge of real estate valuation and development. Fortunately for me, I mean, I love real estate. I'm passionate about it. I find it really interesting and intriguing, particularly from a municipal perspective of, generating value for the taxpayer and helping to sometimes defend that value for the taxpayer as well. But having the opportunity to move into leadership is one of those things where I didn't really need to continue on with the appraisal designation, so I went as far as I needed to. And moving into leadership, there were other skills that were more valuable for me to learn, which led to me pursuing the Master's in Business Administration and Strategic Planning, which I found very foundational and informative, and kind of framed a lot of how I approach large problems and difficult challenges. That, as well as the certified internal auditor designation, I found going through those courses really provide an amazing baseline in how to approach difficult problems and how to work them without becoming overwhelmed by sometimes the enormity of the complexity or uncertainty and ambiguity of them.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing for me is the system for how do you approach those really difficult challenges.
Yeah. Where'd you do your MBA?
I did it at Heriot-Watt University, the Edinburgh School of Business. So
Yeah.
they're actually one of the first remote learning institutions in Europe, I believe. They started off, I think it was a vice president of Volkswagen at the time who had a lot of his new hires all had MBAs and kind of said to himself, I should probably learn that. But I feel really busy. So how do I pursue this and get to the same baseline and meet the same standards, without having to kind of quit my job and go full time. So, but it was a great opportunity.
Was it, I'm just trying to think, I've never been through an MBA program, but I understand them and understand what process that looks like. Was it different going through it from a municipal background or a civil servant background versus the business background, which I assume most people were probably from the business community?
Yeah, I think it was an interesting perspective. I feel fortunate to have been working in municipal government while I've been pursuing my academic pursuits, because I do feel like, in particularly working in Alberta too, you mentioned it a little earlier in the intro, been involved in, passionate about government at all levels for a long time. So I've always been really intrigued in trying to communicate the message in other people's languages or in values and perspectives that are important to them. It's not so much important what my values and perspectives are if I'm trying to communicate with you, more what yours are.
Right.
So as much as I'm working in municipal government, I'm dealing with business on a daily basis, whether it was negotiating with, future land developers when I was working in real estate and development services, or now as developers look to develop communities. So understanding that business perspective was always really important, and finding a way to translate the municipal government processes and intent, purpose, and objectives into language that resonates with members of the business community has been really valuable. So, and even on the other side of it, taking a business approach to how municipal government operates and being able to bring that financial and fiscal prudence perspective to it. I'm not somebody that believes that the lowest cost option is the best option, but really looking at how do you generate value, what is the problem that you're really trying to solve, and efficiently allocating those resources to give you the best opportunity and chances of being effective in addressing your problem.
Yeah. I think having more business minded people in government, I think is important. And I think government of all levels, I think, has waste that goes on. And I think that frustrates people a lot, right? Because we look at it from, we have to pay our property taxes, and we understand you get infrastructure for that and whatnot, but you have your property taxes and then your provincial taxes and your federal tax, obviously. So sometimes I think taxpayers get frustrated when they see bloating in organizations compared to what, say, a business would be running at. So I think it's nice to see that there is some of the business minds within the municipal governments or provincial or federal governments as well, and probably gives taxpayers a little bit of relief on that too when people want to think that way.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks. It's funny you mentioned waste, because that's one of the things that I remember starting here, and one of the intros and getting to know you is like, what's one of your pet peeves? And I'm like, waste at the end of the day. And if we're gonna spend some time, effort, and resources on developing a plan or a strategy or an approach to try and solve a problem, let's make sure it doesn't become something that just sits on a desk and doesn't go anywhere. And you never control things going as fast as we want them to, but we can control them going nowhere. We're not finishing up properly.
Yeah, the government is slower than business because there's more checks and balances, which there has to be because you're dealing with public money. But actually, you know what? I think the province of Alberta has actually done a fairly good job lately of that red tape reduction, right? They've got the program going, and it seems to be it's not where it needs to be yet, but it seems like they are making strides in that. So that is good to see as well. If somebody was looking to get into this kind of career, what are some of the skill sets that you have that you think have really helped you along in it?
Yeah, I think, at a high level, and I think I find myself trying to coach and mentor a lot of existing employees in the municipal government sector and public servants as well. And, I think back to saying to a lot of my teams of, you talked about governments having to work slower, and you're absolutely right. I mean, at the end of the day, the difference is we are entrusted with protecting that public fund, and it's not our money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we can't really be at the pinnacle of speed and innovation, because that would be a level of risk I'm not sure would be acceptable to all taxpayers. We have to be
Yeah.
prudent. And to that end, it sometimes feels like things go slower because there's more controls to make sure that there isn't waste, or we don't do the wrong thing. We don't, to that end. And it means being very patient. And I used to like to tell my old teams, if you can be patient and determined, you can get anything done, but you have to really have that deep level of patience and determination, and be willing to keep on pushing that ball forward uphill.
Hmm.
Because there's going to be obstacles that come in the way that are going to try and kick your ball back downhill or take it away from you.
Yeah.
So, but you just need to be that patient, determined, not allow yourself to get overwhelmed because something didn't get done always at the speed of business or tomorrow. I think a lot of public servants, and when I see individuals come into public service from the private sector, oftentimes where they struggle is with the pace and the number of checks and balances and committees maybe that you have to go through, but inevitably you'll be allowed to bypass step 4 or step 5. It's just when you get to step 9, they're going to ask you, did you do step 4 and 5? Okay,
Hmm.
we'll go back and do it. So you're not really ever going to be able to shortcut it. It's always faster if you just take your time and do it at the right pace.
Yeah.
So, at the highest level, it's the way I see it. I think if people are trying to get in younger in their career, I always say, come into it's like going to any industry. I mean, if I left and went to go work in oil and gas and finance, I don't think it would be necessarily a fair expectation to go laterally into an industry I don't have a significant background and experience in. So try and find a level that you can come in, that you can be comfortable at, that you can provide value. And, you're going to move up quickly within if you are good at what you do, and you demonstrate that value. But sometimes it means sometimes taking a step back in order to move forward.
Right. Right. Now you've worked at multiple municipalities. How do those different municipalities, well, how are they different from each other? And I mean, obviously, size is
Mhm.
a big one, right? So Calgary is much, much larger than Cochrane, but kind of outside of the size factor, what are some of the differences between different municipalities?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think it's something I've been spending a lot of time thinking about. I think, the differences in communities, differences in the structure and the organization. I think moving into a smaller municipality, there obviously are not as many checks and balances because you are unable to you don't have the same levels of resources.
Yeah.
So it does enable you to be much more nimble. So that's one of the perspectives. And I think the other one is, I mean, the city of Calgary to me is still a gold standard in municipal government, and that's why you see them ranked so highly in the livability index that we see coming out. That doesn't happen by accident, but you can't really go to a smaller organization and expect that you're going to have the same level of tools and processes and sophistication of models. So it means building a lot of the things yourself. And, that's one of the things I was really excited about coming to Cochrane from the city, is to apply some of my experiences and what I've seen and help them build those tools. And the really exciting part about it is building those systems, those tools, those processes, based on what I have experience from what I consider a world-class organization, and in some ways tinkering with them and finding a way to make them a little bit more efficient, and a version of it that maybe addresses some of the blind spots or that may not be necessary in a smaller community like Cochrane.
Yeah. And maybe now more specifically with your role in Cochrane, but also going back to your roles that you had in Calgary, how do you manage the interaction between government and then business and taxpayers and all of that? What does that interaction look like, and how is that communication flow opened?
Yeah, I think it's quite open. I think in a smaller community, it's a little bit easier to access, members of your public service and city administration in Cochrane. At the end of the day, I think it's really important to balance responsiveness with efficiency, and I think we spend all day, every day on the phone. We're not going to get a lot of work done. But at the same time, it's really important to invest the time, and we talk a lot here now about civic literacy and helping the public understand what is a municipality, how does it function, what services does it provide, how does it provide those services, because um, it can be a fairly complicated industry, and it's one that isn't always very well understood. I mean, everybody lives in a municipality, but you don't typically realize things until they go wrong. If
Yeah.
things are running
Like
great and
a
everything's running
water
perfect,
pipe in Calgary kind of thing.
yeah, I don't know. There may have been one of those. But I mean, you're not going to notice the 30, 50 years you had without that being an issue.
Mhm.
And what percentage is that really of the life cycle of those assets? So it's important, and I think we look at trying to communicate with the public, the business community, taxpayers in as many different ways as possible. And I think one of the mantras with my team, especially when we look at how we built engagement for Envision Cochrane 2050, providing as many avenues of communication as possible to ensure that we're not customizing that communication to our preferences, but to the preferences of the audiences that we're working with and we're serving. So that
Right.
might mean a different function and a different method of communication for things like our developer community than it would mean for just a homeowner living in a community, and making sure we're communicating to them in their way.
Yeah.
And similar things with council and senior leadership.
Yeah. So what's next for yourself or town of Cochrane? What's coming up in your world?
Yeah, I think it's a really exciting time. I think we want to get through the end of Envision Cochrane 2050, but I'm excited to have recently built out a really excellent leadership team of managers that I now have a fulsome team kind of back together here. And that means an opportunity to level set and look at where do we want to go over the next 25 to 50 years. I'm a person who believes quite passionately in alignment and making sure that we're doing
Mhm.
things in the right order to inform them. So it really is getting to the other end of Envision Cochrane 2050. That's the municipal development plan we built together with the community. And once we establish that, that is our roadmap and our plan for the future. And the fun part is then, going through that document and saying, okay, well, what's in alignment? What needs to change? And, we're going to probably spend, the next year now building strategies for we've established a bit of the what and how are we going to deliver it now and what are the most important things and how does it fit together in order to deliver that aspirational future of the community in the most efficient and effective way possible, then have fun doing it. But
Yeah.
that's really the next steps for me. I think I'd love to give you something really shiny and exciting, but I think this is going to lead to those shiny and exciting things. I always joke about maybe we can get a gondola and then we'll have some tourist attraction in the gondola and people who bike downhill in our beautiful community don't have to walk back uphill. Um, I'm passionate about the sports economy and the benefit and the impact that a sports economy can have on a community, especially a rapidly growing community, to provide them with that venue. And it could be sports, it could obviously be theater and arts as well, but that thing that brings everybody together, especially when you have a rapidly growing community, you have lots of people coming from disparate places, around Canada and around the globe. How do we give them that unifying thing that brings them together to have that sense of community where power of sport, you can, timely with the Olympics, you can enjoy sport together and not get into political differences and just kind of enjoy being together.
Yeah. Yeah. I had family that lived in Cochrane for a while, so I spent a lot of time there as a kid
Mm-hmm.
with them up there, and it's a beautiful place, Cochrane. It's kind of one of those hidden gems a little bit, right?
You
Yeah.
took the words out of my mouth.
If somebody wanted to learn more about you or get in contact with you, where would they go for that?
Yeah, I think they can always contact me through LinkedIn and reach out that way. Of course, I'm always available. Mark Krysinski at Cochrane.ca for Cochranites that are listening to this, and if they have feedback on Envision Cochrane 2050, I strongly encourage them to go to letstalkcochrane.com/envision, and it's an opportunity we're at our third phase in the engagement to look at the draft document, provide additional comments, of course, built on the results of the engagement from the previous two phases. So those are probably the two best ways. And yeah.
Well, I certainly appreciate having you on the show this morning here, and wish you guys the best of luck in the next year as that all goes to that transition and gets rolled out.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
You've been listening to Beyond Wealth, Success Unscripted with Matt Calnan. Want to be our next guest? Visit beyondwealthpodcast.ca/guest. See you on the next episode.